The sky over New York turned dark at noon. People stopped walking. Cars stopped moving. Every phone in the city began to buzz at the same time. Above the tall buildings, a massive shadow spread across the sun. It was not a cloud. It was not a storm. It was something else. A ship. But calling it a ship was too small a word. It was the size of a mountain floating silently in the sky, blocking out the light. Then, one by one, more ships appeared. 10, 50, 100. They came out of nowhere, like the sky itself had opened a door. In London, in Tokyo, in Cairo, in Sydney, the same thing happened. Giant ships hung in the air over every major city on Earth. No sound, no warning, just silence and shadows. Inside a news studio, a reporter sat frozen, her microphone shaking in her hand. The camera was still recording. She looked at the screen behind her, showing live footage from a drone near one of the ships. We are looking at... I don't know what this is, she said, her voice breaking. There are no reports of any incoming objects from any space agency. This came from nowhere. Then the studio lights flickered. The television screen changed on its own. Every screen on Earth, phones, TVs, computers, showed the same image at the same moment. A face appeared. It was not human. Its skin was pale gray, its eyes large and black, its mouth thin and unmoving. The alien spoke. Its voice was calm, almost bored, like it was reading a weather report. People of Earth, I am Commander Threx of the Karathi Empire. Your planet has been chosen for integration. Resistance is not necessary. This will be over in 1 hour. Then the screen went black. For a moment, the whole world was silent. Then came the panic. 3 days earlier, far above the clouds, in a place no human eye could reach, a different scene was happening. Inside a massive command ship called the Devouring Light, alien officers stood around a glowing table. Above it floated a blue image of planet Earth, slowly turning. Around the table stood tall, gray-skinned beings in dark uniforms, their eyes fixed on the glowing planet. At the head of the table stood Commander Threx. He was tall, calm, and confident. He had conquered many planets before. This was just another day at work. Report, Threx said, not even looking up. A younger officer named Vex stepped forward. He was new, still eager to prove himself. Commander, scans are complete. The species is called humans. They are primitive. Primitive how? Threx asked. No warp drive, no plasma weapons, no shield technology. Their most advanced ships cannot even leave their solar system, Vex said. Their weapons use simple explosive chemicals. Their armor is basic metal. By every measurement, Commander, they are centuries behind us. A few officers chuckled quietly. This was good news. An easy planet meant an easy conquest, and an easy conquest meant medals and promotions. What about their military coordination? Threx asked. Do they have one government? One army? Vex checked his datapad. No, Commander. They are divided into over 190 different nations. Many of them do not even get along with each other. Some are actually enemies. More laughter around the table. In the Karathi Empire, planets were unified under one ruler, one army, one purpose. A divided species like this seemed almost laughable, a species that could not even agree with itself. This will be simple, said another officer, an older Karathi named Sarn. He had gray markings on his face, a sign of experience, but unlike the others, he was not smiling. Commander, if I may, speak, Threx said. I have reviewed old data files. Human history, Sarn said slowly. This is a species with a strange pattern. They fight each other constantly. Wars, big and small, across their entire history. But whenever an outside threat appears, a disaster, an enemy, anything greater than themselves, they stop fighting each other and unite. Threx tilted his head slightly, unimpressed. So they unite. Against tanks and explosive powder? Against us? I am simply saying we should not underestimate them, Sarn said. Threx smiled, the first real smile of the meeting. Sarn, my old friend, you worry too much. We have conquered 200 worlds. Some had bigger weapons than humans. Some had more soldiers. None of them had our ships, our shields, our fleet. This will not be a war. It will be a formality. The room agreed. Sarn said nothing more, but as the meeting ended and the officers walked away, he stayed behind, staring at the image of Earth. He zoomed into old video files, security cameras, news footage, random clips collected by scout drones. He watched clips of firefighters running into burning buildings to save strangers. He watched soldiers from different countries working together during disasters. He watched ordinary people helping each other during floods, earthquakes, and storms, even people who had never met before. And there was something else, something small but strange. In almost every video, even in the worst moments, fires, explosions, danger, there were humans who smiled. Not because they were happy, but because they were determined. It was a strange kind of smile, one Sarn had never seen in any other species they had conquered. He whispered to himself, almost too quiet to hear, "Why do they still smile, even in the security footage?" No one answered him. No one was listening. Back on Earth, the panic spread fast. But something strange also happened, something the aliens had not expected. In a private meeting room deep underground, far below Washington, D.C., a group of world leaders sat around a long table. The room was tense, but not chaotic. A woman in a gray suit, the president's chief of defense, spoke first. "The ships appeared over every major capital at the exact same time," she said. "This was not random. This was planned perfectly." A general across the table nodded. "Radar shows nothing before their arrival. No approach, no launch signature. They didn't fly here. They just appeared." "Then we are dealing with technology far beyond ours," said another voice, calm and steady. It belonged to Dr. Elena Cho, the head of a secret global science division that very few people knew existed. "Doctor," the chief of defense said, "is Project Solace ready?" The room went quiet. Even mentioning the name made some of the officials shift in their seats. Dr. Cho nodded slowly. "It has been ready for 6 years. We hoped we would never need it." The general leaned forward. "Then it's time." For years, without telling the public, several major nations had secretly worked together on defense research, driven by scientists who believed one day humanity might face a threat greater than itself. It was never about aliens specifically. It was about the unknown. Asteroids, diseases, unknown enemies. Something big enough that no single country could handle alone. They called it Project Solace. A joint program between multiple governments, hidden from ordinary politics, built on the belief that humanity's greatest weapon was not any single missile or machine. It was cooperation. "Wake up every base," the chief of defense said. "Activate every protocol. If they think this is going to be easy, let's show them why it won't be." Above the clouds, Commander Threx watched the descent of his first wave of scout ships. Small, sleek vessels broke off from the devouring light and dropped through Earth's atmosphere, heading toward key cities: Washington, London, Beijing, and a quiet military base in the countryside of a small European nation. The scout ships landed smoothly, their metal legs folding out onto the grass and concrete. Doors opened with a hiss. Alien soldiers stepped out, tall and confident, their advanced weapons humming with energy. At the base in Europe, 3 Kilrathi soldiers walked forward expecting surrender. Instead, they were met with silence. No people in sight. No sound. Just an empty base. "Strange," said one soldier, his weapon raised. "Where is everyone?" Then the ground shook. Panels opened beneath their feet, hidden defense turrets rising from the earth, weapons the soldiers had never scanned or detected. Before they could react, a fast, coordinated strike hit their scout ship from multiple directions. It wasn't overwhelming firepower, it was precision, speed, timing. Within seconds, the scout unit was destroyed. Back on the devouring light, alarms rang out. Vex rushed to the command table, his face pale. "Commander, we've lost contact with Scout Unit 7. Threx frowned, the first sign of real concern crossing his face. "Show me." The screen flickered, showing the wreckage of the scout ship, smoke rising from a quiet green field. "This is not possible," Vex said. "Their weapons detected nothing greater than basic explosives. How did they destroy an armored scout unit?" Sarn, standing quietly near the back of the room, finally spoke again. "Because we scanned their weapons. We never scanned their will." Threx turned to him sharply. Explain. I told you, Sarn said. This species prepares in secret. They hide their true strength until it is needed. We saw only what they allowed us to see. For the first time, the room was not laughing. Threx straightened his back, his calm expression returning, though his eyes had changed slightly. Sharper now, more focused. One lost scout unit changes nothing. Prepare full invasion force. All ships, descend at my command. Commander, Vex said carefully. Should we not investigate further before? No, Threx said firmly. We have conquered 200 worlds. We will not be stopped by one planet's lucky ambush. He turned toward the massive window, looking down at the blue and green planet below, calm on the surface, but hiding something no scan could measure. Send the full fleet, Threx said. Let them see what real power looks like. Across the galaxy, on ships far larger than any human had ever imagined, engines began to roar to life. Thousands of Karathi soldiers prepared for deployment, confident in their victory, unaware of what waited for them below. On Earth, in bunkers, military bases, and secret command centers across the world, humans were also preparing. Not with panic, not with fear, but with quiet determination. The same determination Sarn had seen in old security footage. The same strange smile that appeared even in humanity's darkest moments. The full invasion was about to begin, and for the first time in the history of the Karathi Empire, doubt began to creep into the minds of those who thought they could never lose. The sky was full of fire. Thousands of Karathi ships broke through Earth's atmosphere at once, glowing red as they entered the air. From the ground, it looked like a meteor storm, but every single meteor was a war machine the size of a building. City after city watched the same terrifying sight. The full invasion fleet arriving, filling the sky like a swarm of metal insects. In Paris, people ran through the streets looking up in fear. In Mumbai, families locked their doors, though everyone knew a locked door would mean nothing against ships like these. In small towns and big capitals alike, humanity braced for what felt like the end. But deep underground, in bunkers and hidden command centers, another kind of feeling was growing. Not panic. Focus. At the secret facility beneath Washington, D.C., Dr. Elena Cho stood in front of a large screen showing live satellite footage of the descending fleet. General Marcus Reyes stood beside her, arms crossed, watching numbers scroll across another screen. Ship count now at 3,000 and rising, Reyes said. This isn't a small strike force. This is a full invasion. They lost one scout unit and it barely slowed them down, Cho said. They're not scared of us. Not yet. Then let's give them a reason to be, Reyes said quietly. Around the world, similar rooms were coming alive. Military leaders who had trained for this exact scenario for years, codenamed Project Solace, activated communication lines between nations that had never fully trusted each other before. Old rivalries were put aside, at least for now. Screens lit up with feeds from Russia, China, the United States, the European Union, and dozens of other countries, all speaking through one shared emergency channel for the first time in history. This is Command Beijing. Defense grid is active. This is Command Moscow standing by. This is Command Berlin, ready to coordinate. One by one, nations that had spent decades arguing over borders and politics were now working together, following the same plan, sharing the same goal. Survival. High above, inside the devouring light, Commander Threx watched the descent with sharp eyes. The loss of Scout Unit 7 still bothered him, more than he wanted to admit. Officer Vex stood nearby, monitoring the incoming data. Full fleet has entered the atmosphere, Vex reported. Landing zones set near every major population center as planned. Send the message again, Threx ordered. Give them one last chance to surrender peacefully. The same alien face appeared on every screen on Earth once more. Commander Threx's voice echoed through billions of devices. People of Earth, your resistance has already cost you one military unit. Further resistance will only bring more destruction. Surrender now, and your world will be spared unnecessary damage. In the underground command center, General Reyes watched the message with a hard expression. He thinks one lost scout ship should scare us into giving up. Maybe it's meant to test our reaction, Dr. Cho said. See if we panic, see if we break. Reyes turned to the communication line connecting all nations. Command Beijing, Command Moscow, Command Berlin. Do we surrender? The answer came fast, almost at the same time from every channel. No. Never. We fight. Reyes allowed himself the smallest smile. That's what I thought. The first wave of karate ground troops landed just outside major cities, forming staging points before moving in. In the countryside near London, a large transport ship touched down in an open field, its metal legs sinking slightly into the soft earth. Doors opened, and dozens of karate soldiers marched out in tight formation, their weapons ready, their expressions calm. Their leader, a broad-shouldered soldier named Korag, raised a hand, signaling his troops to advance toward a nearby town. According to their scans, there was a small local defense force stationed there, nothing more than basic infantry with outdated weapons. This should have been simple. As the karate soldiers marched closer, they noticed something odd. The town appeared empty. No civilians, no visible defenses, just quiet streets and closed windows. Sensors show heat signatures underground, one soldier reported to Korag. Possibly a shelter. Korag smirked. Hiding will not save them. He signaled his troops forward, confident that this would be an easy sweep. But as they crossed into the open square at the center of town, the ground rumbled beneath their feet. Hidden trapdoors opened. From below, human soldiers emerged in coordinated positions, not scattered or panicked, but organized with precision. At the same time, from rooftops on both sides of the square, more soldiers appeared, weapons already aimed. It was a trap, set perfectly. Korag barely had time to shout a warning before gunfire erupted from every direction. The karate soldiers' personal shields, usually effective against basic weapons, began to fail under the concentrated firepower. These weren't ordinary human weapons. These were upgraded, developed in secret over years just for a moment like this. Within minutes, the karate ground unit was destroyed. Korag himself was the last to fall, staring in disbelief at the human soldiers standing calmly among the wreckage, weapons still raised, expressions steady and unafraid. Miles away, similar events were unfolding. In Tokyo, a karate patrol was ambushed near the outskirts of the city, human forces using knowledge of the local terrain to outmaneuver the alien soldiers completely. In Cairo, a small karate scouting group was lured into a narrow street and overwhelmed by coordinated fire from multiple directions. Nation after nation, using tactics they had trained for years without ever explaining to the public, humanity was proving something the karate had never expected. They weren't just defending, they were fighting back and fighting back well. Back on the devouring light, the mood had changed completely. Officer Vex stood frozen, staring at report after report scrolling across his screen. "Commander," he said, his voice tight, "we've lost contact with ground units near London, Tokyo, and Cairo." Threx's jaw tightened. "All three?" "Yes, Commander. Confirmed losses. No survivors detected." Around the command room, officers who had been laughing just hours earlier now stood in stunned silence. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not against a species with primitive technology. Sarn, the older officer who had warned them earlier, stepped forward again, though his expression showed no satisfaction in being right. Only concern. "Commander," Sarn said, "I believe we are underestimating them severely." Threx turned toward him sharply, frustration in his eyes. "How is this possible? Their weapons should not be capable of breaking our shields this easily." "Because we scanned their current weapons," Sarn said. "We did not account for what they might have developed in secret. This species has spent its entire history preparing for conflict, even during peace. They plan ahead. They adapt quickly. And most importantly," Sarn paused, choosing his next words carefully, "they do not give up even when the odds seem impossible." A younger officer near the back of the room scoffed. "This is still nothing. 3 ground units. We have thousands more. This is simply bad luck, nothing more." Several other officers nodded in agreement, wanting to believe the comforting explanation more than the uncomfortable truth Sarn was offering. Threx took a slow breath, regaining his composure. "The Empire has faced setbacks before. This changes nothing about our overall strategy. We simply need to apply more force, more precision." "Commander," Sarn said quietly, "with respect, I do not believe force is the problem here. It is our understanding of them that is lacking." Threx ignored the comment, turning back to the main display showing the full fleet still descending toward Earth. Order the remaining ground forces to proceed with full caution. No unit moves without proper scans of the surrounding area. We will not lose any more units to ambush tactics. Yes, Commander, Vex said, quickly relaying the orders. As the officers scrambled to adjust their strategy, Sarn remained still, watching the glowing image of Earth on the display. 3 failed operations. 3 warnings ignored before this moment. And still, most of his fellow officers believed this was simply misfortune, rather than the beginning of something far more dangerous. He thought back to the strange footage he had studied. Humans smiling even in danger. Humans working together despite their differences. Humans preparing quietly for threats they could not yet see. It wasn't luck that had destroyed 3 Karathi units in a single day. It was preparation. It was unity. It was, Sarn feared, something the Karathi Empire had never truly faced before. An enemy that had been getting ready for a fight like this, long before the first ship ever appeared in Earth's sky. On Earth, in the underground command center, General Reyes watched the results of the day's battles with a mixture of relief and caution. 3 enemy units destroyed, human casualties kept low, thanks to careful planning and coordination between nations. Good work today, Reyes said over the shared communication line. But do not celebrate yet. This is round 1. They will adapt. Understood, Command Washington, came a reply from Command Tokyo. Standing by for next phase, Dr. Cho approached Reyes, holding a datapad showing analysis of the destroyed alien technology recovered from the battle sites. Their shields are advanced, but not unbeatable. Our concentrated fire overloaded them faster than expected. If we can study this tech further, we might find a way to counter their entire fleet. Reyes finished, nodding slowly. Get everything you can from those wreckage sites. Every second counts now. Above them, still hidden behind clouds and city skylines, thousands more Karathi ships continued their slow, careful descent, their commanders now moving with caution instead of overconfidence. The first mistake had been made, not by humanity, but by an empire that believed a divided, primitive species could never truly unite, adapt, and fight back with such speed and precision. The invasion had only just begun, but already, deep in the heart of the devouring light, doubt was spreading like a slow, quiet fire. 3 days had passed since the first Karathi ships landed and the war had changed. What began as a quick, confident invasion had turned into something the Karathi Empire had never experienced before. A long, grinding fight against an enemy that refused to follow the rules of war they knew. Every battle taught the Karathi something new about humans, and every lesson came at a heavy cost. In the underground command center beneath Washington, D.C., the mood had shifted from fear to focus. Dr. Elena Cho stood in front of a large table covered in pieces of alien technology, a damaged shield generator, a piece of armor plating, and a strange, glowing core taken from a destroyed scout ship. Talk to me, General Reyes said, walking in with a tired but alert expression. What have we learned? Cho picked up the glowing core carefully. Their shield technology works by bending energy around the ship almost like a lens. Our weapons weren't strong enough alone to break through, but when we hit the same spot multiple times in quick succession, the shield couldn't recover fast enough. So concentrated fire works? Reyes said. Better than that, Cho said, a small smile forming. We've already built a prototype weapon system based on this. It focuses fire automatically, hitting the same point over and over faster than any human gunner could manage alone. Reyes raised an eyebrow. How fast did your team build this? 41 hours, Cho said. Scientists from 6 different countries working together, sharing data in real time. Something like this would have taken years before, buried in paperwork and politics. Now everyone understands what's at stake. Reyes nodded slowly, impressed but not surprised. This was exactly what Project Solace had been built for. A world finally working as one, when it mattered most. Above the clouds, aboard the devouring light, Commander Threx stood in front of a display showing the current state of the invasion. The numbers were no longer comforting. Total ground units lost, 47, Vex reported quietly. Air units lost, 12. No successful occupation of any major city has been completed. Threx's hands tightened behind his back. 47 ground units. In the history of the Karathi Empire's conquests, No single planet had ever destroyed this many units before their capital city fell. How? Threx said, his voice low. Explain to me how a species without space travel is inflicting these losses. Sarn, standing near the back of the room as always, finally spoke without waiting to be asked. Because they are not fighting us the way other species did, Commander. They do not mass their forces in open battles where our firepower would win easily. They spread out, they hide. They strike quickly, then disappear before we can respond. And worse? Worse, Threx repeated. They are studying us as quickly as we studied them, Sarn said. Perhaps faster. As if to prove his point, a new report came through. Vex's expression turned pale as he read it. Commander, scans show a new type of energy weapon being used against our forces near a city called Berlin. The weapon signature, it matches our own shield technology. The room went silent. They reverse-engineered our shields, Sarn said quietly. In 3 days. Threx stared at the report, his composure slipping for just a moment. In 200 conquered worlds, no species had ever adapted to Karathi technology this quickly. Most species took years, if they managed it at all, before their planet was fully conquered. This is not possible, a younger officer said from the side of the room. No species learns this fast. Humans do, Sarn said simply. On the ground near Berlin, human forces were putting Dr. Cho's new prototype weapons into action for the first time. A joint task force made up of German, Polish, and French soldiers moved carefully through a damaged industrial district, tracking a group of Karathi soldiers who had taken position near a collapsed building. Captain Elise Hoffman, a sharp-eyed officer with years of combat experience, crouched behind a concrete barrier, watching her tablet display the enemy's position. Beside her, a young soldier named Private Youssef Amari gripped the newly issued weapon nervously. It looked almost like a standard rifle, but with an added device attached to the barrel. You sure this thing works? Youssef whispered. Command says it breaks their shields in under 2 seconds if we hit the same spot, Hoffman said. Only one way to find out. She raised her hand, signaling the rest of the squad into position. On her count, they moved. The Karathi soldiers noticed the human squad's advance and opened fire immediately, their shields glowing bright as usual, deflecting normal gunfire with ease. But this time, something different happened. The human soldiers focused their fire precisely, weapons automatically adjusting to strike the exact same point on each shield. For 2 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the alien shields flickered and shattered. The Karathi soldiers froze in shock, their confidence shaken for the first time. Before they could adjust, Hoffman's team moved in fast, ending the skirmish in under a minute. Standing over the wreckage, Youssef looked at his weapon in disbelief. It actually worked. Hoffman nodded, though her expression stayed serious. Command was right. Their tech isn't magic, it's just tech. And tech can be beaten. As they moved to secure the area, Hoffman received an urgent message through her communicator. It was a direct feed from a global broadcast, something being sent to every soldier and citizen on Earth at once. She paused, along with her entire squad, to watch. On screens across the world, in bunkers, in city squares, in homes still without power, a message appeared. It was not from any single president or prime minister. It was a joint statement, recorded by leaders from every major nation standing together in one room. Something that had never happened before in human history. An elderly woman stepped forward on the screen, introduced simply as a representative speaking for all of humanity. Her voice was calm, steady, filled with quiet strength. People of Earth, she began. 3 days ago, our world was told to surrender. We were called primitive, divided, weak. She paused, looking directly into the camera. They were wrong. Around the world, people watched in silence, holding on to every word. For generations, we fought each other over land, over borders, over pride. We called ourselves different nations, different peoples, different tribes. But today, for the first time in our history, we stand as one world, one species, facing one threat together. She continued, her voice growing stronger. Every scientist who shared their research instead of hiding it. Every soldier who fought beside strangers from another country as if they were family. Every person who helped their neighbor instead of turning away. You are the reason we are still standing. The message reached soldiers in trenches, Scientists in labs, families hiding in shelters, and even prisoners in cells, all listening to the same words at the same moment. "We do not know how long this fight will last," she said. "We do not know what tomorrow will bring. But we know this. Humanity has never faced a challenge too great to overcome, not when we stand together. And we will not start losing now." The broadcast ended with a simple, powerful line, one that would be repeated for years to come. "Let them come. We are ready." In command centers and battlefields across the planet, soldiers who had been fighting non-stop for days felt something shift inside them. Not just determination, but unity. For the first time, humanity wasn't fighting as separate nations defending their own land. They were fighting as one species defending their one shared home. Aboard the Devouring Light, Commander Threx watched the same broadcast, translated instantly by his ship's systems. His expression was unreadable as the message ended. "They are rallying," Vex said quietly. "Their entire species, together." Threx said nothing for a long moment, staring at the frozen image of Earth's representative on the screen. "Commander," Sarn said carefully, "I believe now is the time to reconsider our approach." "No," Threx said firmly, though there was less certainty in his voice than before. "We have committed too much to withdraw now. The Empire does not retreat." "I am not suggesting retreat," Sarn said. "I am suggesting we stop underestimating them completely before it costs us the entire fleet." Before Threx could respond, new alarms blared across the command room. Vex rushed to check the incoming reports, his face turning pale once again. "Commander, multiple coordinated strikes detected across 6 continents simultaneously. They're targeting our supply ships and secondary landing zones all at once." On the main display, dozens of red markers appeared across the glowing image of Earth, each one representing a Karathi position under attack at the exact same moment. This wasn't random resistance anymore. This was organized, planned, executed with precision across the entire planet in perfect coordination. Threx stared at the screen, his mind racing. 200 conquered planets, and none of them had ever managed anything close to this level of unified defense. "Shields on our main fleet are holding," Vex reported. "But supply lines are being cut faster than we can protect them. If this continues, we may lose the ability to properly support our ground forces." For the first time since the invasion began, real concern showed clearly on Threx's face. He turned to Sarn, who stood quietly, watching the chaos unfold exactly as he had feared it might. "You said their history shows they unite against outside threats," Threx said slowly. "I did not understand how completely you meant that until now." Sarn nodded grimly. "Commander, I fear we have made a grave miscalculation. We came expecting to conquer a divided primitive world." He looked at the display, watching human resistance grow stronger with every passing hour, adapting, coordinating, and fighting back with a strength that defied everything the Empire's scans had predicted. "Instead," Sarn said quietly, "we may have united an entire planet against us." Outside, unseen by any scanner or sensor, the mood on Earth had shifted completely. What started as fear had become resolve. What started as scattered defense had become a unified counterattack. And deep within the heart of the invading fleet, for the very first time, the Karathi Empire began to feel something it had never truly felt before in 200 years of conquest. Fear. 7 days after the first ship appeared in Earth's sky, humanity was ready to end the war. In the underground command center beneath Washington, D.C., the mood was different from anything General Reyes had felt since the invasion began. It wasn't fear anymore. It wasn't even determination. It was quiet, focused confidence, the kind that comes only after days of hard-earned victories. Dr. Elena Cho stood before a massive screen showing a live map of the entire planet. Green markers representing human forces were spread across every continent. Red markers representing Karathi positions had shrunk dramatically over the past week. "Status report," Reyes said, walking into the room with the weight of command clear on his shoulders. "Their main fleet has pulled back into a tighter formation above the Atlantic Ocean," Cho said. "After losing so many ground units and supply lines, they're consolidating power, trying to regroup." "Smart move, but too late," Reyes said. "Talk to me about the new system." Cho brought up a detailed diagram on the screen, a network of satellites, repurposed from civilian and military use, now connected into one unified targeting grid. We call it the Unity Array. Every nation contributed something: satellites, tracking stations, weapon platforms. It took teams from over 40 countries working together nonstop for a week. And it's ready? Reyes asked. Fully operational. Cho confirmed. For the first time, we can track their entire fleet in real time, predict their shield patterns, and coordinate a strike from every corner of the planet at once. Reyes nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. Then it's time to finish this. He turned to the communication line connecting every command center across the globe. His voice was steady as he spoke the words that would begin the final battle. This is Command Washington to all Allied forces. Operation Unity Strike is a go. All units stand by for coordinated launch. One by one, confirmations came in from every major command center on Earth. Command Beijing, standing by. Command Moscow, standing by. Command Berlin, standing by. Command New Delhi, standing by. Command Brasilia, standing by. Nation after nation, voice after voice, until the entire planet stood ready, together for the first time in human history, aimed at a single shared goal. Aboard the devouring light, Commander Threx stood before his command table, staring at the shrinking numbers on his display. The confidence that once filled the room was gone entirely, replaced by a heavy, uncomfortable silence. Total losses now exceed 60% of our original invasion force, Vex reported quietly, his voice lacking its earlier enthusiasm. Ground operations have failed in every major region. Supply lines remain cut. Remaining forces have regrouped around the main fleet as ordered. Threx said nothing for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the glowing image of Earth, still turning slowly on the display, calm and unaware of how much destruction surrounded it. Sarn stepped forward once more, his expression grave but not smug. He had never wanted to be right about this. Commander, I believe we must consider full withdrawal. Continuing this campaign will only lead to greater losses. The Empire does not retreat, Threx said, though his voice lacked its earlier certainty. The Empire has also never fought an enemy like this. Sarn replied gently. Commander, we came to Earth expecting weak, disorganized resistance. Instead, we found a species capable of adapting faster than any we have encountered, uniting completely under outside threat, and turning our own technology against us within days. Threx's jaw tightened. He knew Sarn was right, but pride and decades of unbroken conquest made the words difficult to accept. Before he could respond, new alarms blared across the entire ship. Vex rushed back to his station, eyes widening as he read the incoming data. Commander, multiple high-energy signatures detected across the planet's surface, thousands of them, activating simultaneously. On the main screen, dozens of glowing markers appeared across Earth's surface, each one representing a massive weapons platform, powering up at the exact same moment. Ground-based cannons, orbital defense stations, hastily built in secret over the past week, repurposed satellites now armed and ready. They've built an entire defense network, Vex said, disbelief clear in his voice. In 7 days. Threx stared at the display, the full weight of the situation finally settling in. This wasn't a scattered resistance anymore. This was an entire planet, fully united, striking with coordinated precision on a scale the Karathi Empire had never encountered in 200 years of conquest. All ships, Threx ordered, his voice tight. Raise shields to maximum. Prepare for... He never finished the sentence. On Earth, in command centers across every continent, General Reyes gave the final order. Fire. Thousands of weapons platforms activated at once, sending streams of concentrated energy fire into the sky, all aimed with pinpoint precision toward the Karathi fleet, floating above the Atlantic Ocean. The Unity Array coordinated every single shot, focusing fire exactly where Dr. Cho's team had calculated the alien shields were weakest. Above, the devouring light and its surrounding fleet lit up with defensive fire, shields glowing bright as they absorbed the initial wave of attacks. For a moment, it seemed as though the Karathi defenses might hold. Then, one by one, the shields began to fail. The coordinated strikes hit each individual point with such speed and precision that the shields simply couldn't recover in time. Ship after ship in the outer fleet began to lose power, their protective barriers flickering and collapsing under the relentless assault. Aboard the Devouring Light, alarms rang out in rapid succession as reports flooded in from every corner of the fleet. Outer defense ring shields failing. We're losing cruisers 11 through 20. Multiple hull breaches reported across the fleet. Threx watched in stunned silence as, for the first time in his career, an entire section of his fleet began to crumble before his eyes. Ships that had conquered 200 worlds without significant resistance were now being torn apart by a species they had called primitive just 1 week earlier. Evasive maneuvers, Threx shouted, finally breaking from his shock. Pull the main fleet back, regroup it. There is nowhere to regroup, Commander, Sarn said quietly, watching the chaos unfold on the display. They have surrounded the entire fleet. This attack is coming from every direction, coordinated perfectly. It was true. The Unity Array had calculated every possible escape route, every potential regrouping point, and closed them off entirely. The Karathi fleet, once feared across 200 conquered worlds, was completely trapped. Down on Earth, soldiers and civilians alike watched news feeds and military broadcasts, showing the battle unfolding in real time above the ocean. Captain Elise Hoffman, watching from a command post near Berlin, stood silently with her squad as the reports came in. Enemy shields failing across the fleet, a voice announced over the broadcast. Multiple direct hits confirmed on cruiser-class vessels. Private Yusef Amari, standing beside her, allowed himself a small, tired smile. I don't think Command Berlin needs us anymore today. Hoffman nodded slowly, watching the sky, though the battle above the Atlantic was too far to see directly. Maybe not. But someone needed to build the weapon you use to break their shields. Someone needed to figure out how they think. And someone needed to make them scared enough to bunch their whole fleet together like that. Command Washington's plan, Yusef said. Everyone's plan, Hoffman corrected gently. That's the whole point. Around the world, similar scenes played out. Soldiers, scientists, and ordinary civilians watching the culmination of a week's worth of sacrifice, innovation, and unity, finally paying off in the skies above the ocean. Aboard the Devouring Light, the situation had become desperate. More than half the remaining fleet had already been destroyed or disabled, drifting lifelessly in orbit, or burning as they fell toward the ocean below. Threx stood frozen at his command table, watching the destruction of everything he had spent his career building. Commander, Vex said, his voice shaking now. Shields on the Devouring Light itself are down to 40% and falling rapidly. Threx closed his eyes for a brief moment, the weight of the situation crushing whatever pride remained. When he opened them again, something had changed in his expression. Not defeat exactly, but a grim acceptance of reality. Order all remaining ships to attempt full retreat, Threx said quietly. We cannot win this battle. Commander, the Unity Array has closed off all viable retreat routes, Sarn said gently. I do not believe retreat is possible at this stage. Threx turned to look at Sarn, the older officer who had warned him from the very beginning, whose concerns had been dismissed again and again until it was far too late to matter. You tried to warn me, Threx said softly. I did, Sarn replied, without anger or satisfaction, only quiet sadness. But knowing an enemy's strength does not always prevent underestimating it, Commander. We are not the first empire to make this mistake. I suspect we will not be the last. New alarms interrupted their conversation. Vex's voice cracked as he delivered the final report. Commander, multiple high-yield strikes incoming, directly targeting the Devouring Light. Impact in 10 seconds. Threx stood tall, straightening his uniform one final time, staring at the glowing image of Earth on the display before him, calm and steady despite everything that had happened. They came expecting an easy conquest, he murmured, almost to himself. They found something else entirely. The final strikes hit the Devouring Light directly, overwhelming its weakened shields completely. The flagship of the Karathi invasion force, once the pride of an empire that had conquered 200 worlds without serious resistance, broke apart in a final burst of light, joining the wreckage of the rest of its fleet scattered across the sky and ocean below. On Earth, cheers erupted in command centers across the globe as reports confirmed the destruction of the Devouring Light and the near-total elimination of the Karathi invasion fleet. In Washington, General Reyes allowed himself a rare, tired smile as Dr. Cho embraced her team of scientists. Exhausted but triumphant after a week that felt like it had lasted a lifetime. Across the planet, In cities that had trembled in fear just 7 days earlier, people stepped outside cautiously, looking up at a sky finally clear of alien ships. Smoke still rose from scattered wreckage sites, and the scars of battle remained visible in damaged buildings and quiet, empty streets. But the invaders were gone. That evening, the same elderly representative who had addressed the world days earlier appeared once more on screens across the planet. Her voice, though tired, carried the same quiet strength as before. 7 days ago, an empire that had conquered 200 worlds came to our planet expecting an easy victory, she said. They believed a divided, primitive species could offer no real resistance. She paused, looking directly into the camera, her eyes reflecting both the weight of loss and the strength of survival. They came to conquer a planet, she said slowly. They forgot to ask what kind of species lived on it. Across the world, in homes, shelters, and command centers, people listened in silence, feeling the true weight of those words settle over them. We lost many lives in this fight, she continued. We will honor them always. But we also proved something today that we must never forget. When humanity stands together, united by a common purpose, there is no challenge too great to overcome. As her speech ended, cameras across the globe captured quiet, peaceful moments. Families reuniting, soldiers resting after days of non-stop battle, and children looking up at a clear night sky, no longer filled with fear, but with the simple wonder of stars. Far above the planet, drifting silently among the wreckage of the destroyed Karathi fleet, a single small sensor drone remained active, undetected by human forces. It had been sent by a neighboring alien empire long before the invasion began, quietly observing the Karathi's approach to this seemingly insignificant primitive world. The drone recorded the final moments of the battle, the complete destruction of a fleet that had once conquered 200 planets without difficulty, and began transmitting its data across the stars, back to its own distant empire. Somewhere far away, in a command room belonging to an entirely different alien civilization, officials watched the footage in stunned silence, studying the wreckage, the tactics, and the terrifying speed at which this small blue planet had turned complete annihilation into total victory. One officer broke the silence with a single question, quiet and uncertain. What do we do now? No one had an answer, because deep in the vast darkness of space, word was beginning to spread among the stars of a planet called Earth, home to a species that should never be underestimated again.